Are you looking for the best 2024 NFL Thanksgiving week DFS and best ball rankings and advice around? Then get ready for the IDP Plus Thanksgiving week best ball DFS extravaganza special coming up next. Welcome into the Draft Lab. I'm Joel Worth, and this is the IDP Plus Best Ball Show, DFS Show, Thanksgiving Special Extravaganza. That's right, it is week 13. It's Thanksgiving week. And Thanksgiving week, so much fun. The Thanksgiving slate is always a lot of fun for best ball, for DFS. We get a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. We got three games, obviously, on the slate for Thanksgiving. The early game is Chicago at Detroit. Detroit is a 10-point home favorite here with an implied total of 29.25 and 19.25 for the Bears. So Detroit, the highest implied total of the week. The afternoon game, when everybody will be eating, because this is not a very appealing game, is the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. 37-point total in this one. Dallas is a 3.5-point favorite with an implied total of 20.25. The Giants at 16.75. And the night game, the best game, the Miami Dolphins travel to Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. The Packers 3-point home favorites. The total in this one is 47, second highest of the three games, and an implied total of 25 for Green Bay and 22 for Miami. So if we list the implied totals in order, it's Detroit at 29.25, Green Bay at 25, Miami at 22, Dallas at 20.25, Chicago at 19.25, and the Giants at 16.75. So no huge totals, a couple nice totals at 48.5 with the Bears and Detroit, and 47 for Miami Green Bay. Miami Green Bay is going to be interesting. It's going to be Lambeau Field. It's going to be night. It's going to be cold. The high in Green Bay is supposed to be low 30s that day, right around freezing. So at nighttime, it's probably going to be low to mid 20s. The field is going to be slippery, so we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, so if you saw the game on Sunday, you saw Tom Brady give a demonstration of the different cleats you need to wear and why you shouldn't be wearing molded cleats, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll see how that plays out. We've seen Tua come out and say that he wants to dispel the myth of the Dolphins not being able to play in cold weather, but a lot to talk about. So let's get right in. Let's talk about DFS first. Bring up the sheet here. The things you're going to need to decide right away is how much you want to pay for quarterback. What quarterback do you want to go to, and is there a difference-making tight end? Because the tight end group is not super appealing. Obviously, Jonnu Smith has been playing pretty well. He's a big part of the offense, and he's the highest priced tight end on the slate by quite a bit. At least on FanDuel, he's the highest priced by quite a bit. Pretty close on DK. So let's start with quarterback. So you got Jared Goff at 8,200 on FanDuel, 6,500 on DK. So not a super high priced quarterbacks group. Then Tua, Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Cooper Rush, and then Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock. We've seen, or at least heard today, that Tommy DeVito is a little bit banged up, so that brought the possibility of Drew Lock starting into play. Obviously, neither one of those are going to be super appealing options. Tommy DeVito was not good last week against Tampa, and Drew Lock obviously couldn't beat out Tommy DeVito. So interesting that they're both the exact same price on DK at $4,500. I'm going to be leaning toward Caleb Williams here just because I think he's the lowest price of the big four, and I consider Goff, Tua, Love, and Caleb to be kind of the big four, the ones who are at least starters for their teams at the beginning of the year. He's got the best rushing upside and rushing floor. He's the only one really with any rushing floor of those big four, and he's the lowest price, pretty significantly, $1,000 lower than Jordan Love on DK, $700 less than Tua, and $300 less than Jordan Love on FanDuel, and $800 less than Tua. Tua and Love kind of flip-flop between the sites. Love is more expensive on DK. Tua is more expensive on FanDuel. So you can kind of make your decision there. Obviously, I would prefer to play Jordan Love on FanDuel if I could, and Tua on DK because he's much, much cheaper there at only 12% of salary compared to 13%. And Uh, so Caleb's where I'm going to lean. If I want to pay down, if I want to pay up, then obviously Goff is an interesting one. Goff is kind of tough because we'll talk about this in a little bit. We've seen some injury concerns with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You want to attack the Bears on the ground. They're a better pass defense than they are run defense, although they got beat up by Jordan Addison and T.J. Hockenson last week. So we'll see how it plays out. Goff it's kind of tough to pay up for him. I'd rather kind of lean to Tua, lean to Jordan Love, lean to Caleb Williams. If I take CeeDee Lamb, I'm more interested in maybe taking a Cooper Rush. Uh, it's I think if Detroit wins, they end up running the ball quite a bit. So I'm not sure that I want to pay up for Jared Goff being the most expensive quarterback on the slate. But he's not so prohibitively expensive that you can't if you think that Detroit is going to want to throw the ball. Moving on to the running backs, Devon Achane is the most expensive on both sites. Significantly so on FanDuel, 6,000 more than Jahmyr Gibbs, and very close on DK, where he's 7,700 over Jahmyr Gibbs' 7,500. I highlighted Jahmyr Gibbs here for one reason, and that is there is injury concern with Dave Montgomery. Now, we've heard that he's likely to play today. We got that news from Dan Campbell, but he was obviously didn't finish out the game. They said he could have come back in if it was necessary against Indianapolis on Sunday. But I'm a little bit concerned that they may try to limit him if they get out to a big lead. They may pull him. So if David Montgomery is limited or if he doesn't play, obviously, then Jahmyr Gibbs just vaults to the top of this list, becomes the most valuable player by far, I think, on the slate. So if he's this much on FanDuel, I think he's really a smash compared to Achane. Now, there's no you can play both. You can get them both into your lineup if you want. It's tough. You have to pay down really hard at receiver and at tight end. But I'm going to be giving Gibbs priority over Achane at their pricing, just because, like I said, if Montgomery is limited, doesn't play, then Gibbs just becomes an absolute smash and the best player on the slate. Josh Jacobs, like you just have to get used to the fact that the Green Bay offense revolves around him. They are the highest, or I should say, the lowest pass rate over expectation through 12 weeks. Belongs to the Green Bay Packers, and that's not just because Malik Willis has started 2 games. They're leaning very heavily on Josh Jacobs in a way that they really couldn't with Aaron Jones. So the offense in Green Bay runs through him. There are some options in the passing game that I do like. But you have to, and Miami's got a very good pass defense. They've been very good against the pass this year. They are good. They have a very good pass rush, kind of a no-name pass rush, but they're getting there. They're getting real pressure on the quarterback. So I think the Green Bay Packers are going to try and run their offense through Josh Jacobs. So I think Jacobs is the safest bet for volume on the slate. So he's definitely going to be in play. Montgomery obviously has the questions, but if you want to lean into him, you can do that. It's 6,500 on DK. It's a very nice price for him there. Then DeAndre Swift, Tyron Tracy, Rico Dowdle, Roschon Johnson. That's as far as I'm going down. I'm not interested in Raheem Mostert. He's been basically phased out of the offense. Jalen Wright just hasn't been very good. So I am not paying down for anyone below Roschon Johnson, and that is a bit of a stretch. You're basically just hoping for a touchdown from him. So Tracy and Dowdle are both interesting in that Dallas just got demolished by Joe Mixon a couple weeks ago. So Tracy's interesting. They played better against the run last week, but a lot of that was because Brian Robinson was injured early. And then Rico Dowdle, this is a Giants team that just gave up a ton of production to basically both Tampa running backs, Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. They really got run over by a heavy pass team. So Dowdle at his price is very interesting. He's going to be kind of my preferred kind of second back if I need to pay down at running back to get a receiver in. I think he's a nice pay down option there. So moving over to the receivers, a little bit concerned about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and this is where this slate becomes really interesting. He's dinged up as well. Dan Campbell again said he expects him to play, but an injured Amon-Ra St. Brown is really a concern. I'm not sure I'm comfortable paying up. Highest priced player on the slate, tied with Devon Achane, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. 8,000 makes him the highest priced DK player. That's really tough to swallow on a very short slate with an injured player. So that really tough to pay that price unless you're really sure that he's going to be the way that Detroit wants to attack that game. And then CeeDee Lamb, CeeDee Lamb's got like, I think the number 77 targets in the last 6 games since the game before the bye. Just an insane target share. So I think he should be the most, I think he's kind of under the radar. The most highest should be the highest priced receiver on the slate, given Amon-Ra's injury concern. So he's someone I will have a lot of shares of in DFS and in best ball. Malik Neighbors, obviously that you get the squeaky wheel narrative there. Called out Brian Daboll. Daboll, said he needs to get him more involved early, and that's absolutely true. But Dallas is pretty good pass defense. I'm not sure, and you're gonna have Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock trying to feed him the ball. Tough to get there at that price. So he's going to be someone I'm not super highly invested in. Want to have some shares just in case he could go off. Like we've seen Dallas just absolutely kind of crap the bed on Thanksgiving afternoon. So wouldn't surprise me if he gets there, but that's not a very appealing price for what he's doing right now and what that offense looks like right now. Tyreek Hill is the next one, and kind of that's the end of the tier, right? You got your big 4 tier at 7,800, 6,900 on DK. Jameson Williams is very, very interesting, especially on FanDuel. And Jameson Williams, not a very high volume guy, but a very high touchdown equity player. So more valuable on FanDuel than on DK, which is full PPR, less touchdown reliant. But James Williams just significantly, he's less expensive in absolute terms and much less expensive percentage-wise as percentage of salary on FanDuel. So he's someone I'm very interested in. I will have some receiver rooms that he's leading, especially on FanDuel. I like his price a lot, quite a bit. Jaden Reed, DJ Moore, good luck figuring out the Bears receiver room. It has seemed like they've wanted to go quicker, get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands earlier, and they're doing a lot of kind of bubble screens, short A-dot stuff to DJ Moore. So I think that makes him the preferred receiver there. We saw Keenan Allen get a couple touchdowns last week and a big target share, but we also saw Rome Odunze get a big target share in the first game with Thomas Brown against the Packers in a very kind of snap-limited game. So they're all in play. So just kind of mix and match depending on what pricing you want to do. Jalen Waddle, we kind of saw him break out last week. How will it, we get a little bit of a squeaky wheel narrative against Tyreek Hill, kind of put a social media post out about why he wasn't more involved. He was involved to an extent, just didn't have as big a game as Johnny Smith and Jalen Waddle did. So interesting to see how the Miami passing game goes. And again, you're going to have the slippery field. So who navigates that best is what you need to be looking at. Waddle 6,300 compared to Tyreek Hill 7,800. If you go by the last couple of weeks, the choice is clearly going to be Waddle. But I think if you want to get Johnny Smith involved as your tight end, it really makes it kind of difficult to roster one or both of these guys. So you kind of need to make a choice there. And then the Packers receivers highlighted Romeo Doubs. He has a concussion, highly unlikely to play, especially in the short week. So I think that puts Dontavian Wicks very much in play. He's going to replace Doubs in the kind of flanker position. Has really struggled with drops this year, but he was really good on a per snap basis last year. So I think at his price, he's an extreme bargain and someone I'm very interested in DFS and best ball. We'll talk about him in a minute. I'm trying to sneak him in the back of my drafts. So I like Dontavian Wicks quite a bit, just kind of usurping the Romeo Doubs role. And then another injury replacement we need to talk about is Tim Patrick with Detroit. Sounds like Khalif Raymond is unlikely to play. So he will be kind of picking up the slack there on the kind of outside deep receiver role underneath Jameson Williams. His price is very interesting, but again, on FanDuel, he's only $600 less than Jameson Williams, and I'd clearly much rather have Jameson Williams. On DK is where he gets really interesting at only 3,500. So very, very low priced. And, again, the comparison to Jameson Williams, he's much more appealing on DK. So he's an interesting DK play. Not sure I'm going to be interested in him on FanDuel, or I'd much rather go with Jameson Williams. So kind of site specific which Detroit receiver you want to go to. If you're not jumping on Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you're concerned about the injury, if you're concerned about paying up for Amon-Ra, then I think I'm going to lean Jameson Williams on FanDuel and Tim Patrick on DK. And then you get the receivers in the Giants, the secondary, tertiary receivers in the Giants-Dallas game. Wendell Robinson, Brandon Cooks, Darius Slayton, Jalen Tolbert, just not very interested in those guys. I'll be picking and choosing from the Chicago receivers, picking and choosing from the Green Bay receivers, Miami receivers. Just not interested in those secondary guys. Very interested in CeeDee Lamb. Some interest in Malik Neighbors, but not much interest in these back end guys in that game. Now let's go to tight end. We talked about how we need to, is there a tight end differentiator this week? If you think it's Jonnu Smith, you're going to have to pay up for him. 6,300 on FanDuel, 4,300 on DK. DK, it's not too bad. He's closer to Laporta, only 8.6% of salary. And on FanDuel, he's above 10%. So on DK, I'll probably be paying down a tight end. On FanDuel, I'll probably be paying up, especially since I can use the salary savings from Jameson Williams, who's $600 less, to kind of fit him in my lineup. Excuse me. So, again, site-specific, I'll be very heavily invested in Jonnu Smith on FanDuel, not so much on DK, where I can get better prices. Other players like Laporta, again, if Amon-Ra is going to be limited or not going to have his snap count, not what it normally is, then Laporta becomes a much more interesting option. Jake Ferguson is highlighted. He's probably not going to play again. He's concussed as well, just like Romeo Doubs. We've heard Mike McCarthy say this week that he's long shot to play again, missed last week. So just taking him out of my rankings entirely, will not be taking him. Tucker Kraft had a touchdown last week, but I think he only had 2 targets. So not a huge part of the offense. The Packers just haven't been running a lot of snaps, and it's been a very heavy run game the last couple of weeks, like we said about with Josh Jacobs. So Kraft is always interesting. He's always got that upside in single game upside. But if I'm paying up, I would kind of rather go with Laporta or Jonnu Smith. Cole Kmet is tough. He's getting enough targets, but Detroit is very good against tight ends, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of Cole Kmet this week. Schoonmaker's the interesting one. If you want to pay down, he is getting significant target share. He had 10 targets in the Monday night game against Houston. I think he had 7 targets on Sunday against Washington. So if you want to pay down, he's the interesting guy. Theo Johnson, he's got a back injury, questionable to play, kind of limited at practice. If you really need to pay down a tight end, if you're going for some really high upside guys, then on FanDuel or DK, he's 2,900. He's crazy cheap. So you could go there just as a complete punt. But on FanDuel, where he's basically the same as Schoonmaker, can't get there. Not interested at all. So again, another site-specific play. Defensively, Detroit is obviously the highest priced, but I'm not really. I don't want to pay up. You got Green Bay, the second highest price on DK. They're actually cheaper than Dallas by $100, but they are $100 more than Dallas on FanDuel. Just they get a lot of turnovers, right? And that's always good for a fantasy defense. But Miami they don't turn the ball over. They're doing a lot of quick hitter kind of stuff. Keeps Tua out of danger. They, again, very careful with the ball. So if the Packers defense doesn't get turnovers, they're not very good. They don't get a lot of sacks. So I'm not going to be paying for Green Bay this week. I don't think this is a very good matchup for them fantasy-wise, DFS-wise. So the interesting ones to me are Dallas playing against, whether it's Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, obviously a very appealing option. And also kind of the Giants, who have a very good defensive line, can get after the quarterback. Cooper Rush was really terrible. He was solid last week, but really terrible in that Monday night game. So If you want to pay up, you're fine. If you have the salary space, I'm fine going with Detroit. I don't want to go to Green Bay this week. I think this is a bad matchup for them. Dallas and the Giants. So Detroit, Dallas, and the Giants are where I'm going to be going. Chicago, they are the cheapest, but not really appealing. You're just paying down for them as a punt. They not great at getting a bunch of sacks, not great at getting turnovers. Detroit is a team obviously that does not turn the ball over at all and puts up a lot of points. So not super interested in them. So again, the defense I'm interested in Detroit if you want to pay up, Dallas and the Giants if you want to have a cheaper option. So that is it for DFS. A very fun slate. Some good options. Some fairly loose pricing. You can make some pretty fun lineups. You need to decide where you want to go quarterback, and decide where you go at tight end, and then kind of fill your lineup in around those two positions. So very interesting slate for DFS. Now let's move over. Let's talk about best ball. There we go. All right, so I've got my best ball rankings here. Let's talk about the drafts that are available first, because props out to Underdog. They've done a terrific job. So many drafts this week. A lot of fun stuff. Now, personally, I was really hoping they would go with 6-person drafts, maybe include the Friday game, the prime game, but I think that would have been really fun. You just can you'd have to make real decisions. If you want to take quarterback early, you would have to do that in the first round. If you're willing to wait on quarterback, then you can get some of the other top players. So I thought that would have been a really interesting dynamic, but they went with 4-person drafts. Can't complain. It's been a lot of fun so far. I'm really, really enjoying it, really having fun kind of differentiating. And there's just absolute ton of options. The big one is obviously the turkey, the 4-person drafts. They're all 4-person drafts, but $5 entry, 40K entries, and 20,000 to first. So that's for a short week. That's really, really cool. Obviously, half of what the regular Battle Royale is. For a 4-person draft, that's fantastic. A fantastic top prize. Tiny Turkey, $3 entry, 19,000 entries total, and 5K to first. Again, half of what the Wildcat is. So really fun to make some really kind of crazy lineups there. The Big Turkey, that's kind of your cash game, $100 entry, 444 entrants, 5 entry max, so 6K to first on that. So if you've got that kind of money in your account, absolutely have some fun with that. The Dirty Bird, crazy winner take all, $20 entry, 456 entries, 8K to first. So if you can stomach kind of coming in second and not getting anything, this is probably, if you've got the stomach for that, that's the tournament for you. The stuffing, $25 entry, 5 entry max, about 1,000 entries, 5K to first. So that's something I'll be definitely taking advantage of. The mac and cheese, $5 entry, 10 entry max, 4,500, 3K to first. The mashed potatoes, $10 entry, 10 entry max, 2,200 entries, 3K to first. Green bean casserole, this will be a fun one, $15 single entry, 1,500 entrants, 3K to first. Definitely doing that. The cranberry sauce, this is all late slate. So late slate is the Dallas Giants and the Miami Green Bay game. So basically the same slate, just without the Detroit Chicago game. So brings in some interesting roster decisions. And obviously you don't have the Detroit players, the Chicago players. So $7 entry, 10K to first on the cranberry sauce. The tiny cranberry sauce, $3 entry. Again, the Wildcat tournament. And the big cranberry sauce, again, $100 entry, 6K to first, 444. So similar to the turkeys, just late slate only. So only 2 games instead of the 3 games. So just a ton of options. And props out to Underdog. They always do a great job with their game options. So again, would have liked to seen 6. I think that would have been really fun, but we'll make do with 4. It's all good. So let's talk about the rankings. Now, there is no ADPs on these. So when you're in the drafts, you're not going to be able to rely on ADPs. They'll just have their projections. Again, don't worry about, if you come out of the draft and your team is projected to have a low point total, don't worry about that at all. You want to be able, I cannot stress how important it is that you differentiate yourself and you get some different lineups The single entry, the single entry ones, and single entry tournaments. That's when you want to kind of put your best lineup forward. But in these multi-entry tournaments, you want to get some really kind of out there lineups. Even if it's a narrow path to that being successful, that's good because that means a lot of most other people aren't going to draft that team, and you can be really unique that way. So that to me, that's what's a lot of fun about this. Is just creating the most unique lineups I can, given the constraints that it's just 4 players, 4 drafters, and only 6 roster spots. It can get really tricky. You need to be very careful not to duplicate your entries in this one, because it can be really easy to do if you're in a similar draft spot. All right, so my rankings, again, just like the best ball, very heavy, or just like a DFS, heavily slanted to the running backs. I think right now, if you look at the drafts, the way they're going, Gibbs and HN are primarily the 1 and 2 in almost every draft. Josh Jacobs is usually the 3. He in most drafts, sometimes he goes 2, sometimes he goes 4, but it's a pretty solid 4 in Gibbs, HN, Jacobs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, usually in that order. You can see some wacky things. You go in the little turkey, like today I saw a Laporta go 2 overall, just built a huge Detroit stack. You can see some kind of different stuff, but primarily, for the most part, you're going to see Gibbs and HN 1, 2, then Jacobs, then Amon-Ra, and then that's where things kind of get different. You can see CeeDee Lamb go 5, Montgomery go 5. Tyreek Hill usually doesn't go 5. Those other guys usually go before him. And then Malik Neighbors. Then the question becomes, when do you want to take your quarterbacks? I think if there's a specific quarterback you want for your build, you usually need to take them kind of in the 3rd round. I think if there's one you definitely want, you kind of need to go after them in the 3rd, because that's when they start to disappear. Jonnu Smith, the top tight end, if you want him, if you think he's the top tight end and you want to spend a high pick on a tight end, he's usually a top 10, 11 player. So it's usually that kind of the middle of the 3rd round of picks that you need to take him. So in that 10, 11, 12 spot, you need to grab him in the 3rd if you want to be assured of getting him. That's kind of where he's going right now. And then, you've got this the quarterbacks. Again, it's an interesting dynamic in that there will be a couple, depending on the draft, that they kind of get picked off. So like you draft Tua, you want to draft Tyreek, you want to get Tua. You draft Amon-Ra, you want to get Goff to get the combos, get the correlation. But then there's usually going to be a lull, because then it becomes, okay, I didn't get Love, I didn't get Tua, I've got Goff, I've got Caleb Williams that I can stack with Keenan Allen, I can stack with Rome Odunze, so I'm going to wait on quarterback. The CeeDee Lamb drafter usually thinks he can wait on Cooper Rush, doesn't really care if he gets Cooper Rush. So if you don't get your quarterback, in that 3rd round, if there's a specific one you really care about, then you can usually wait until, round 5, round 6, because nobody's really in a hurry to get the non-correlated quarterbacks. So it's just, it's a very binary decision where you want to take your quarterbacks. Then we get into the kind of second tier of running backs, the Tyrone Tracy, the Rico Dowdles. Where are we overall? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, kind of, late 3rd round, early 4th round. Definitely some interesting guys there. If you want to fill up that running back spot and not take a 3rd receiver, those are definitely guys you want to be interested in. Then Jameson Williams, then the Chicago, the secondary receivers, the Keenan Allens, the Jalen Waddles. I've obviously gotten Ferguson and Romeo Doubs out of my rankings altogether. I do not have them ranked. Let's look at my rankings. Then I've got the running backs ahead of Tracy, ahead of Jaden Reed, ahead of Malik Neighbors. I like Tracy a lot in that spot. I should probably be moving Dowdle up, because I like Dowdle and Tracy as well. It just becomes a question of, do you want to fill up that second running back spot? Because you're almost always taking a running back in the 1st round, because 3 of the 4 first 4 picks are running backs, and basically 4 of the first 5 picks are going to be or for the first 6 for sure are going to be running backs. So you almost always have one running back in your first spot. If you want to go through receivers, then you need to kind of actively stay away from these guys so you don't fill up those spots. But I kind of like having sometimes those guys, like sometimes Tracy falls to the 6th round. So he's a very interesting option there. And then DJ Moore, Waddle, Jameson, Keenan Allen. Dontavian Wicks is someone that I want to have on probably maybe 40% of my rosters, I think. I don't know if I want to go half my rosters. But the thing that makes him tough to get is if you go, running back, receiver, and you're stuck, needing a quarterback and a tight end late. If you want to build out that way, then obviously you can't. You're kind of priced yourself out of taking Dontavian Wicks and guys like that. So as far down as I will go is kind of a Dunze. I take Watson in very Packers kind of onslaught related drafts. Odunze if I want to have a Caleb Williams stack partner. Roshan Johnson, Tim Patrick. That's basically as far as down on the skill players as I will go. I'm not trusting Brandon Cooks, even though we've seen he might come back this week. This is about as far as I will go. That I'm not drafting pretty much anybody beyond that. Even though I have some of those guys ranked, but and then your back end tight ends like Laporta, Kraft, they always get drafted, but a lot of times these guys will hang around until the 6th round because nobody wants to commit to taking a tight end. So I find myself a lot of times in rounds 5 and 6 just being forced to take a quarterback and a tight end. So in those cases, you can't get the Dontavian Wickses, the Roshan Johnsons, the guys that you want to, Christian Watsons, Robodunzes, the guys that you want to take to kind of differentiate your lineups. So I do want to say, again, it's very important that you differentiate your lineups. You kind of so don't be afraid to kind of do things differently than you normally would. Don't be afraid to take like Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs. Don't be afraid to take Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs, something like that. Don't be afraid to stack games heavily. Don't do a Packers Dolphins stack and just ignore the other games altogether. That's fine. If you're going to do a lot of drafts, you want to have as many kind of unique combinations as you can. And like I said before, if the more weird and kind of out there those drafts are, the more unlikely those things are. You may say, you look at draft and say, "Oh, this is really unlikely that this comes through." Well, everybody else is looking at that and going, "Yeah, that's really unlikely." So they're not going to draft that way. So that's how you become unique. It's just draft these different team stacks. I do kind of like to stick to the if I'm not doing a very specific kind of build, I like to stick to the 3-2-1 rule. 3 players from one team, 2 players from another team, 1 player from the third team. Do something like that, just if you want kind of a heuristic that can kind of keep you from just taking best player available all the time and having your lineups look super similar. Again, this is you cannot have a bunch of lineups that all look the same and think that it's going to pay off and that you're going to have just a bunch of teams that all make the finals, because it's just not going to work that way. You need to find a way to get unique and make your lineups as different as possible. Again, you can't let yourself get duplicated. You need to be really paying attention to the teams that you're drafting. Good thing it's a short week, obviously, because you'll have a pretty good memory of what you've already drafted. But make sure as you're going between different drafts and between different formats, always be cognizant of who you drafted and what kind of teams and what kind of builds you've already taken, so that you don't dupe yourself, because obviously that's you're costing yourself EV, you're costing yourself expected value if you duplicate your team. So you don't want to do that. Now, it's perfectly fine to do the same team in different drafts, like the big turkey and the small turkey. You have the same team. That's fine, because they're different drafts. You're playing against different fields. That's all right, but don't have the same team in the same big turkey. Obviously, you're costing yourself EV, because that team can't win. you've got a team that basically can't win if the other one does. So you'd be fine if it wins, but it's just, you're reducing your chances that you have a unique team that actually wins. So be very cognizant of not duping yourself on these very 4-player drafts where it can be very difficult to get unique if you kind of box yourself in early. So that's it. So that is our best ball DFS Thanksgiving Day preview. Can't wait for the slate. Should be a lot of fun. And then we'll pop back in and get to the main slate later in the week. You can find my DFS Top Plays article coming out on IDP Plus later on in the week. And while you're there, check out the site and go to idpplus.com/membership and get 20% off site-wide with the promo code PROPS. The playoffs are coming. We're 2 weeks out from playoffs in your season-long managed leagues, your dynasty leagues. So you want to finish your season off right with an IDP Plus subscription, and you get 20% off any subscription for a limited time with the promo code PROPS and get access to all our tools, data, IDP articles if you're an IDP degenerate, and don't miss out on the subscriber Discord where you can find myself. You can find my buddy Jameson, who does the DFS show with me live on Sunday mornings. A lot of the cool people in there. You got questions, you will get you lots of different answers, and you will get lots of good answers. So check out the subscriber Discord with a subscription to idpplus.com. That's it for the Thanksgiving week. Appreciate you checking out the show. You can find me at the Joel Worth on Twitter on the Blue Sky. Again, you can find my DFS Top Plays article coming out for the main slate later in the week. And like I said, my buddy Jameson Hutchinson and I will be getting together on Sunday morning for the live main slate DFS show, 10 o'clock Eastern time, right here on the IDP Plus network. Do us a favor, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, subscribe. So much cool stuff going on here on the IDP Plus and IDP Bets network. That's it. Enjoy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a great time with your families. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we will see you later in the week to talk about the main slate. Thanks again for checking out the show, and we will see you later.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.